Keanu Reeves quietly walked into a high school classroom, but what happened next would change the lives of a teacher, a student, and an entire school forever. A humbling lesson on kindness and respect from the beloved actor left the class stunned, and no one could have predicted the ripple effect it would have. But the real twist? The incredible story that unfolds from this moment continues to surprise at every turn. Stay tuned because tomorrow's story will be even more exciting and full of secrets waiting to be revealed. Make sure to subscribe for more, and let us know where you're watching from. In a bustling high school in Los Angeles, Mr. Carter, a stern history teacher known for his rigid demeanor, was leading a lesson on the Cold War. His class was typically quiet, students too intimidated to speak unless called upon. That morning, he'd singled out a shy student named Mia, pressing her to explain the significance of the Berlin Wall. When Mia stumbled over her words, Mr. Carter interrupted sharply. "Perhaps you should focus more on your studies and less on daydreaming, Ms. Torres." The class fell silent, some students glancing at Mia, whose face flushed crimson. At that moment, the classroom door creaked open. A man in a simple leather jacket and jeans stepped inside, a man with familiar salt and pepper hair and a calm, disarming presence. It was Keanu Reeves, there to speak about his charity's work with underprivileged schools. He'd been invited by the principal but had entered quietly to avoid disruption. Mr. Carter, flustered, stammered, "Mr. Reeves, this is unexpected. We were just discussing history." Keanu nodded, his gaze lingering on Mia. "History isn't just about facts," he said softly. "It's about understanding people's stories, and treating them with respect." He turned to Mr. Carter. "May I share something with your class?" The teacher nodded, suddenly uneasy. Keanu stepped to the front, his voice gentle but firm. "I've played many roles in my life, but the most important ones are being a listener and a learner. Everyone here, including you, Mr. Carter, has something to teach us." "Mia," he said, addressing her directly, "your question about the Berlin Wall was insightful. It made me think about how walls can exist not just in cities, but in our own lives, walls of fear, judgment, or misunderstanding." Mia's eyes widened. For the first time, she felt seen. Keanu continued, "True strength isn't about making others feel small. It's about lifting them up. I've met leaders, soldiers, and artists who changed the world not with power, but with kindness." He glanced at Mr. Carter. "A great teacher once told me, the classroom is a place to build bridges, not walls." The room hung heavy with silence. Mr. Carter's face paled. Mia, emboldened, raised her hand. "Mr. Reeves, what does the Berlin Wall teach us about hope?" He smiled. "That even the strongest walls can fall when people choose unity over division." After the lesson, Mr. Carter approached Keanu. I handled Mia poorly. I'm sorry." Keanu clasped his shoulder. "We all make mistakes. The key is to learn from them." Days later, Mr. Carter began inviting students to share personal stories alongside history lessons. Mia, now brimming with confidence, organized a school project on global unity. And when Keanu's speech made local news, teachers across the city quietly reevaluated how they treated their students. In the end, the most profound lesson wasn't about the Berlin Wall. It was about the walls we build between ourselves, and the quiet strength it takes to tear them down. In the weeks following Keanu Reeves' visit, a subtle transformation swept through the school. Mr. Carter, once a figure of stern authority, began to approach his classes with a newfound empathy. He started each lesson by inviting students to share their perspectives, weaving their insights into the day's curriculum. Mia, who'd once dreaded speaking in class, became a regular contributor, her confidence blooming like a flower that had finally found sunlight. One afternoon, as the class discussed civil rights movements, Mia raised her hand. "Mr. Carter, do you think change happens because of leaders, or because ordinary people stand up?" Mr. Carter paused, his mind flashing back to Keanu's words. "I believe it's both," he replied slowly. "But real change often starts with small acts of courage, like when someone chooses kindness over indifference." The students murmured in agreement, and Mia smiled, her eyes meeting Keanu's in a silent thank you. Months later, the school hosted a career day, and rumors buzzed that a special guest would attend. When Keanu Reeves stepped onto the auditorium stage, the crowd erupted in cheers. He'd returned to speak about his charity's new initiative, funding scholarships for students who demonstrated both academic promise and a commitment to community service. After his speech, Keanu lingered to chat with students. Mia approached him nervously, clutching a handmade card. "I wrote this for your charity," she said, her voice trembling. "It's about a project I started to help immigrant families learn English." Keanu listened intently, his eyes softening. "That's incredible, Mia. You're not just changing lives, you're building bridges." He pulled a small card from his pocket and handed it to her. "This is my personal email. If you ever need support, reach out." As Mia hugged him, Mr. Carter approached, his hands in his pockets. "Mr. Reeves," he said quietly, "I wanted to thank you. You made me see things differently." Keanu clasped his shoulder. "We all need reminders to be better. You're doing good work now, that's what matters." Years later, Mia graduated as valedictorian, her speech echoing Keanu's lesson. "The walls we tear down in ourselves can inspire others to do the same." Mr. Carter, now a mentor for new teachers, often shared Mia's story as a testament to the power of empathy. As for Keanu, his visit became a legend in the school's history, a quiet moment when a celebrity's humility changed not just a teacher and a student, but an entire community. And in the end, the most profound lesson wasn't about history books or speeches. It was about the quiet strength of kindness, and how even the smallest act of respect can ripple outward, changing the world one heart at a time. A decade after Keanu Reeves' visit, the school had transformed. Mia Torres, now a confident young woman with a scholarship to study education, stood at the podium during her graduation ceremony. "When I was 16, she began, her voice steady, "a single moment of kindness changed my life. It taught me that education isn't just about facts, it's about lifting each other up." She glanced at Mr. Carter, who now sat in the front row, his eyes glistening with pride. Mr. Carter had left teaching to advocate for educational equity, inspired by Keanu's lesson. He'd founded a nonprofit, Bridges Over Walls, which trained teachers in empathy-driven pedagogy. Keanu once said, "The simple act of paying attention can take you a long way." Mr. Carter often quoted in workshops, referencing Keanu's real-life philosophy. On graduation day, a familiar figure slipped into the audience. Keanu Reeves, now in his 60s but still radiating warmth, had returned quietly. He'd heard about Mia's journey and wanted to witness it firsthand. During her speech, Mia paused, spotting him in the crowd. "There's someone here today who doesn't need an introduction," she said, her voice trembling. "He showed me that even the smallest act of respect can change a life." The crowd erupted as Keanu stood clapping. Mia handed him the microphone. "You once said art is about making the world more compassionate," she told him. "You didn't just say it, you lived it. This school, this community, we're proof of that." Keanu smiled, his eyes bright. "Mia, you're the art now. You're the story." Keanu's visit had sparked a movement. The school now hosted annual kindness conferences, where students shared projects inspired by his lesson. Teachers across the district adopted Bridges Over Walls training, and Mia, now a teacher herself, led workshops on inclusive education. In a quiet moment after the ceremony, Keanu approached Mr. Carter. "You've done something remarkable here," he said softly. Mr. Carter shook his head. "It was your lesson, Keanu. You just reminded us what mattered." Keanu clasped his shoulder. "We all need reminders sometimes." Years later, a documentary crew visited the school to film a segment on Keanu's philanthropy. They interviewed Mia, now a principal, and Mr. Carter, who'd written a book on transformative teaching. One scene showed a faded photo of Keanu in the school's hallway, captioned, "Kindness changes everything." In the film's final moments, the camera panned to a mural painted by students, a Berlin Wall crumbling, replaced by hands reaching across. Below it, a quote from Keanu, Sometimes enemies are our best teachers. Destruction sometimes means rebirth. The school's transformation was a testament to one quiet lesson, that respect, not power, builds bridges. And in a world hungry for empathy, it was a story worth telling again and again. After graduating, Mia Torres became a high school principal in her hometown, transforming it into a kindness campus, where students led initiatives like empathy walls, where peers shared struggles anonymously, and Bridge Builders, a mentorship program pairing students with community leaders. Her methods drew national attention, earning her a spot on Forbes' 30 Under 30 list for education innovation. In an interview, Mia reflected, Keanu once said the world needs more heroes who understand the power of vulnerability. That's what we're teaching here, strength through connection. Unbeknownst to many, Keanu Reeves had quietly funded Mia's programs through his private foundation, inspired by her work. He'd also collaborated with Mr. Carter's nonprofit, Bridges Over Walls, to train teachers in low-income schools. A 2023 study cited in Edutopia found that schools using their curriculum saw a 40% drop in bullying and a 30% rise in student engagement. Keanu rarely sought credit, but in a rare interview with Bambus Panda, he acknowledged the movement's roots. Mia and Mr. Carter showed me that one classroom could start a revolution. I just helped amplify their voice. At Mia's school, a shy freshman named Leo stumbled into her office after a teacher dismissed his passion for art. I want to make murals about social justice, he mumbled, but they said it's a distraction. Mia smiled, recalling her own moment with Keanu. Art is how we heal the world, she said, handing him a key to the school's art studio. Start painting. Leo's murals, depicting unity, resilience, and hope, soon covered the school's walls. One depicted Keanu shaking Mia's hand, with the words, "Kindness is the currency of change." In 2025, Keanu Reeves attended the United Nations Global Education Summit, where Mia spoke via video link. When I was 16, she said, a celebrity walked into my classroom and taught me that respect is the foundation of learning. Today, that lesson has spread to 500 schools worldwide. Keanu, seated among world leaders, wiped away a tear. Later, he told a reporter, Mia's the real hero here. She took a spark and turned it into a wildfire. Years later, Mr. Carter lay in a hospital bed, reflecting on his life. His nurse, a former student, leaned in. You know, sir, my kid goes to Mia's school. They're teaching my daughter the same lessons you learned from Keanu. Mr. Carter smiled. Tell her to keep building bridges. As the nurse left, she glanced at a photo on his bedside table. Keanu, Mia, and a young Mia, all laughing at the school's first kindness conference. Keanu Reeves' visit to that ordinary classroom had set off a chain reaction. Mia's school became a model for UNESCO's Global Kindness Initiative, training educators in 20 countries. Mr. Carter's Bridges Over Walls trained 10,000 teachers. And Keanu, though still celebrated for his films, became known as the quiet architect of empathy. His influence felt in classrooms, boardrooms, and parliaments. In the end, the story wasn't about a celebrity or a student, it was about the quiet power of choosing kindness, even when no one is watching. And how one small act, multiplied 1,000 times, could rebuild the world, brick by brick, wall by wall. If this story touched your heart, we've got many more that will do the same. Click the screen to discover more tales of hope, compassion, and resilience that will inspire you.